So I'm now out of my body feeling better and better and better. I can feel energy returning to me. I feel so much more hopeful, so much more alive. I remember looking back over my left shoulder and looking at myself as Wendy in the bed, thinking, oh my gosh, and this was kind of humorous too, thinking, oh my gosh, she looks like a hot mess. She's
I want to welcome everybody back to The Soul Inspired. My name is Joe Borowski, and today we have Wendy Rose Williams, who is joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to her. She's had an NDE and has some other spiritual work that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on the show and talking to me today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks so much for the invite, Joe. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I remember when we communicated back and forth, I did see a little bit about you. And then when we talked a little bit, I looked up a little bit. Like I said before we started talking tonight, though, I don't go and try to find everything out about everyone because I love having the moments that I learn about people on the spot and finding out about them. So
Let it unfold.
so the first question I ask everybody, it's kind of the way I've started all my episodes, is if you look at where you're at right now in your life and the things you're doing, and we could even talk about the experience you had as well. What was your life before you had the experience? So before any experience happened in your life, what was your life like? Like, what was Wendy's life?
There's been, I wouldn't even call it 180 degree. I'd call it a 360.
Okay.
And the near-death experiences started that change, but then there was a major spiritual awakening that came up about um, years after that. So it was like a two-pronged, it was like trying to get the oyster to open, and I was a very stubborn oyster.
Okay. Completely understand. So let's go with this. What was it? What was your life like before the first experience you had?
Sure. Before the near-death experience, I was a really busy, exhausted, hardworking mother. And my husband and I were just working too many hours, and we had a toddler, and both working full time, living in the Seattle area. And we really wanted to have another child. So was thrilled because there had been years of infertility as well as two ectopic pregnancies. So we were thrilled that I was pregnant again. So that kind of sets the stage for what then happened. And I was in the first trimester, I had just one visit to the OBGYN, and everything looks great. So we're just, over the moon and very, very happy. But two things were happening, Joe, that seemed really odd to me. And one was I just had this crazy heartburn, and that didn't make any sense to me because I was only 10 weeks pregnant. So I'd called the doctor's office a couple of times, and they said, oh, it's safe to take my Lanta, so go ahead and do that. And I'm thinking, oh, that isn't even touching this. But it is what it is. And the other thing that was happening was I was having these profound dreams several times a week, and it was always the same dream. And I had never had that happen before. And I didn't understand the concept of precognitive dreams, that we can have something really profound bubbling up from our subconscious and from our unconscious that's trying to tell us something. And what would happen in the dream was it was this terrible storm out at sea. And I would see this big sailing vessel, and the winches would rip off, the cleats would tear off, the masts would fall off, and the ship would always break in two and would go down.
Wow.
So this does not take a master dream interpreter to let you know, Wendy, your ship's about to go down. But I didn't know that. I didn't understand. I thought, oh, what do I do with this? It's just, these are the dreams I'm having, just over and over and over again. So on the day of the first near-death experience, I'm working at home. I'm alone. do not have the car at home because my husband's at work. He's got one car. And we also had a wonderful live-in nanny, and she's got our other car, and she's at the park with our toddler. So I'm just trying to focus. I'm just trying to get work done, but I do not feel right. And I, try and do work, but then unless I have to, do I need to go lay down? Do I need to, am I going to be sick? What is going on here? I do not feel right. And all of a sudden, I had this sense of impending doom, which I have never had before or since. And interestingly, I've heard a lot of other near-death experiencers talk about too. And so I run into the bathroom thinking just something is really, really wrong. And I looked down because all of a sudden there was just this searing pain in my abdomen. And I looked down because I thought, oh my gosh, there is just a knife stuck in me. I've never felt pain like this. And it felt like an organ burst. So at that point, I passed out on the floor. And I only came to because there was this insistent male voice that just would not stop. And he kept saying, Wendy, Wendy, you've got to wake up or you're going to go home.
Mm.
And I knew exactly what he meant. I knew he meant I was going to die. So I open my eyes and I'm disoriented. I'm just in a fetal position, just hugging my midsection because I'm in so much pain. And I'm laying on my side, looking up in the bathroom. And Joe, it was just lit up. I have never seen so much light. There were these 4 or 5 large beings of light, and I recognized them as angels because I could see they were floating off the floor. I could see they were much larger than human beings, and I could even see like the shape of the wings kind of trailing below their feet since they were off the ground a little bit.
Wow.
So the we'll call him the lead angel because I didn't recognize him at that time. I would recognize him later. He says, again, you've got to call for help now. And my reply was, I understand, but I can't walk. I can't get to the phone because this was 1997 and we did not have cell phones glued to our hands or glued to our back pockets. So I had to actually use this primitive thing called a landline. And when I said that to him, his answer to me was really important. And I think it was multi-leveled. He said, you just have to be willing to try. And I think that was referring to free will. We've got to put our own effort in. We cannot delegate our lives. We should not be delegating our power to others. And so I just tried and tried to get up on my hands and knees at that point. And I was able to do that. And at that point, it was because my mind is blown and it's everything is happening so fast because angels are now absolutely real.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having conversations with them and can understand them clear as can be. And they're helping me. They're literally saving my life. And at that point, when I did get up onto my hands and knees, it was like being gently flown the short distance to get to the bedside phone. So at that point, again, I'm like, oh my gosh, how can this be happening? Thank you, thank you. And I reach up for the phone because I'm still on the ground. And I reach up for the phone and I did have a quick thought of who do I call? I never entered my mind to call 911 because I'm a healthy 36-year-old at the time. I'd never called 911 in my life. And all the angel said was call for help. So I called my husband at work and thought, well, if I reach him right away, great. If not, I'll have to come up with another plan. And miracles continued because I did reach my husband at work. I have never reached him at work on the first call like that. And I give him a lot of credit because all I said to him was, I need you to come home now. and drive me to the hospital. Can you do that? And all he said was, on my way. And I could hear him slam down the phone. So I knew he'd be home in 5 minutes,
Right.
which is going to be faster than an ambulance was going to get there. So all I had time to do was to call the physician office. I call my OBGYN. I explained to them what's happening, this intense pain. And I explained also that my abdomen was just rising more and more, which I didn't understand why that was happening. And I answered their question. No, I was not bleeding. Because I knew they were thinking, oh, miscarriage, is she bleeding? I said, no, I'm not, but I don't understand why my abdomen's going up like this. And they said, that's great. Your husband's on his way. When you get here, we don't park the car. We don't want you walking. We're going to meet you curbside with a wheelchair and get you straight into the wheelchair and get you up into our office. So that's exactly what we did. And we were fortunate. I was fortunate again, because the OB office was right at the hospital. And I think that was also really important for my care.
Mhm.
And so I get whisked up to the tiny little ultrasound room in the OBGYN office. And my husband and I get ushered in there. And we're now like looking at the screen, and you just can't see anything on the screen. So I didn't understand it. I'm looking at the ultrasonographer saying, is that on? Is your machine working? I don't understand why I don't see anything. And her response was, I'm going to get the doctor now. So I'm looking at my husband like this is not good. I don't understand what's happening, but this is not good. She returns immediately with not only a physician, but with a nurse midwife. And that was kind of comical at that point, because I'm looking at this room thinking, how many more people can you shove in this tiny room?
Right.
And the doctor tries to adjust the machine, and he realizes what's going on and tells me as gently as he can, Wendy, you're losing massive blood. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know what's happening, but there's a massive bleed going on. And that's why your abdomen's rising like this. It's a major blood loss going on. And that's why you think you're not seeing anything on the screen, but we are. What we're seeing is blood. It's just all
Right.
blood. And that's why we can't see any
Wow.
organs. We need to get you admitted to the hospital right now. So someone ran and got a gurney and transported me lying down, because they didn't even want me sitting up at that point, and admitted me straight into the GYN unit. And I noticed that they put me right next to the nurse's station, and which I appreciated. But having worked in healthcare for much of my career, I knew that meant they were really worried. The nurse asks if I know my blood type, and I said, of course. I know my blood type. Everyone should know their blood type. And I really recommend, now they've got these marvelous free apps in case of emergency that you can have on your phone, and just download one of those and put important things in it, like your blood type, any allergies, anything really important about you. Because if you are ever in a medical emergency situation, you're going to have your phone and no one has to know the passcode to it, but the medical team can get in, and they can get in and look at this in case of emergency information. So I tell her it's A negative. So she goes off to call the blood bank, Puget Sound Blood Bank, which is a regional blood bank serving many hospitals, to not be wasting blood. And she comes back in a couple minutes later, just not looking happy and shaking her head, and says, I can't get any blood for her because there was this major train collision a couple days ago, and there's no A negative blood to be found.
Oh my goodness.
So this is an unusual situation too, and the conversation's been going on with the doctor and with the nurse and just various personnel. Were they going to take me straight to surgery? But we don't know what we're operating on. We don't have any blood, and I'm still clearly really losing blood quickly, and they can't transfuse yet. So the agreement, what we made the agreement together, we need to wait until we've got some blood here. And they were making some other calls and trying to figure that out. And we agreed to wait and watch. And I was very comfortable with that decision because I didn't want to, rush in and do surgery because, hey, I'm pregnant. So that's what we agreed to do, and they were able to find some blood probably about 4 or 6 hours later. So start transfusing me, but I am blowing through all the painkillers because, of course, they start you on something really light, hoping to just take the edge off. Because I'm still just writhing around on the bed in so much pain, and I'm in more pain from the transfusion needle because they were having to transfuse really quickly because I just was just going through it so fast. So this was the situation. Can't get out of bed to even go to the bathroom because they just want me lying prone, and I'm just trying to visualize, okay, what are the non-essential organs? Because the body's a miracle.
Mhm.
And things can heal, things can seal off, and things can turn around. So we're as I said, we're waiting and watching. I'm being very well taken care of. And so what we decided to do is to just keep monitoring, and we did that for a couple of days. But Joe, what was happening increasingly was I was extremely concerned because I could feel myself walking between worlds, and it was harder and harder to focus, to answer anyone's questions. And I just didn't care. That is so not my personality. And
Mhm.
it's wow, I just feel myself giving up. And I've never given up in my life before. So
Did that feel negative, or just it just felt like you were just kind of like
it just
not
it just felt like I was out of gas.
okay?
It was just like truly like just like the life force was just like slowly like ebbing out of me
Okay.
is the best way I can describe it.
Okay.
And what happened, every day there's blood work being done, and on day 3 my physician says to me, Wendy, we've got to do surgery. You're officially bleeding out at this point, because I'm sure you can tell we can't transfuse quickly enough because you just lose it faster than we can transfuse it. So I agreed to the surgery. The surgery was going to be the next morning at 7 a.m., and it was going to be my own physician as well as one of his partners. I was really comfortable with that decision. There was a brief discussion. Did I need to be transferred downtown? And we agreed no. I was at a hospital. It was my community hospital closest to home, but it was very much an OBGYN hospital. They were doing approximately 5,000 births a year. So I knew that meant there was a really deep GYN surgical crew. Because again, I had a healthcare background, so it was easier for me to be kind of like weighing these decisions than it is for the average person. I was very comfortable with my physician because I had gone through the 2 ectopic pregnancy surgeries with him, and the infertility work, as well as the successful delivery of our toddler. So we all agreed I was going to stay exactly where I was and have surgery the next morning with the 2 OBGYNs there at my local community hospital. So this decision's been made. I feel some relief from it because it was a really hard decision to make. But I knew it was the right decision, and I had dinner, and I'm just trying to relax. I'm alone in my hospital room, and I'm just trying to picture, trying to visualize and feel into that positive outcome the next day. The minute I try and visualize a positive outcome, I pop right out of my body, completely leave my body. Evidently, that was my best outcome. It's like, I am out of here because it was just so painful. So I'm now out of my body, feeling better and better and better. I can feel energy returning to me. I feel so much more hopeful, so much more alive. I remember looking back over my left shoulder and looking at myself as Wendy in the bed, thinking, oh my gosh, and this was kind of humorous too, thinking, oh my gosh, she looks like a hot mess. She's in the sheets and she looks like the wild woman of Borneo, because of course no one has, handed me a brush or a comb for like 3 days
Right.
of writhing around in bed. That's not exactly been the high priority, is to do my hair. So I look like a crazy person. And and then I'm like, wait a minute, why am I referring to myself as she? She looks incredibly pale, whiter than a ghost. She looks in a bad way. I'm like, who am I if I'm referring to myself in the third person? And I realized immediately, oh, I'm me. I'm the real me. I'm in pure soul form. And Wendy Rose Williams is just an aspect of me. Yes, a very important one, because that's my body, that's my persona, that's my personality for this lifetime. But it's certainly not the full deal. So I'm pretty darn blasé about that body in the bed. I'm like, she's fine. It's not fine.
Right, right. You didn't want anything to do with it, it sounds
I
like.
didn't want anything to do with it.
Right.
I'm much more interested in feeling better. And I can see this marvelous, enticing white light coming down in like a ray from the ceiling above me. I'm like, oh, I'm going there. I know exactly where I'm going. So I start following that up and just going faster and faster. And I remember popping out of the top of the hospital, out of the roof of the hospital, and looking down and starting to get like that Google Earth view. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. We've got to take better care of the planet. So that was like a fleeting thought. And then again, I'm on a mission, which is to go on up to the light. So I start going again, going higher and higher and faster, and feeling better and more like myself. And then all of a sudden, I run out of energy. I've got nothing left. It's like, if you're driving and driving and, you're going at 90 miles an hour, and all of a sudden your tank has nothing in it. So I just stop. It's like I'm in a stall. And I remember thinking, oh, please don't make me walk through one of those long tunnels, because I think I'm going to make it. I don't have enough energy to walk through that tunnel.
Right.
And the minute I think that, this pristine, gorgeous escalator comes in and just drops down for me. I get on this escalator with so much relief, and I plop myself over the handrail on it. And because I did that, I then got a sense of what my body, my soul form was like, and what it should have been like. So I'm hanging over it like a pancake. I'm like hanging over both sides of the handrail. And I knew I should have been like a beach ball, like this really vibrant orb of energy, and just all this soul energy within it. And instead, I'm flatter than a pancake. So I'm like, oh, thank you for the ride. So the escalator takes me up, and at the top of the escalator, clearly, my soul group, my soul family knew I was coming, as well as the angels, the same angels that had been in my bathroom. So they were in the back, and I could recognize them because they were bigger, they're larger, there's just more light coming from them. It's a different energy. But my soul family, there's like 18 of them, are all up right in front the second I get off the escalator, and they're giving me this group hug, and I could just feel this unconditional love. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm home. I'm staying here. This is it. This is the best thing in the world. And right at that point, as I'm receiving this hug from everybody, I can hear Archangel Michael start to speak to me, and I recognized him. Like, of course, that's who was in my bathroom, because
Mm.
I did cry out to God. I did cry out for help when I felt myself going down the few days earlier, when I was home alone and had the first near death experience. And what he says to me is, welcome home. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you made it. You've done nothing wrong. You're welcome to stay. And I'm like, yes.
Wow.
And he but then he adds to that and says, but you're going to need to make your decision quickly. And I thought, oh yeah, that mess of a body in the hospital bed. Yeah, I get it. Obviously not viable very long. So what Michael tells me is, I can tell you three things to help you make your decision. Number one, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow and you will regain your health completely. This is huge. This is the weight of the world off my shoulders. I'm like, oh, now you're tipping the scales. And number two was, your baby will be born healthy. Oh gosh, right. I'm pregnant with a very wanted pregnancy and I have a toddler. So I'm like, oh my goodness, but here I'm getting this unconditional love. And that is such a big deal. And it's so important we learn how to give it to ourselves and be able to radiate that out more easily to other people, because a lot of people don't get enough of it or any of it. And we often don't feel it enough because of our own wounds and our own issues. So that is just crucial, for many reasons on this planet. And number three, he shares with me, is the kicker. If you choose to go back, life is going to be very difficult, likely for many years, because you're not on your life path. So that goes all the way back to your very first question. What was life like before this experience as a 36-year-old waiting for the second baby? And I am horrified when he says this to me, Joe. I'm chagrined. I feel terrible. No one wants to hear they're not living their purpose. So I look at him, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is it? Tell me. What am I supposed to be doing or not doing, or, letting go of or doing more of? I'm really horrified to hear this.
Right.
And he just shakes his head gently. And I'm like, dang, when
It's
an
a good-
archangel's not going to tell you something, he's not going to tell you something.
yeah.
So I knew not to look there any further. So I start looking around at the rest of the group and I thought, oh, come on, group dynamics. There's got to be a chatty Cathy here in the group.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Let me look for the weak link. Who can I get some information from? So I'm looking all around and no one will share anything with me. So I feel myself starting to deflate again, like, oh boy, how am I going to figure this out? This is critical. And I clearly don't know what I'm doing if I'm being told this and I'm having this experience. So my soul family and soul group, they recognized I'm just like deflating again. So they start being really ridiculous. They start being so funny and just really silly with how they're not able to share the information with me. So they put like duct tape over their mouths, but they're like dancing around, or they'll like, close it up with a lock and key and throw the key away. But again, it's very upbeat. It's very humorous. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Clearly, I need to figure it out myself.
Right.
So Michael says to me at that point, what do you want to do? And the minute he says that, all I can see is my daughter's face, my toddler's face. And Tara was the most gorgeous toddler. Every parent thinks this, of course, but all I can see is her big green eyes and her brown curly hair. And I'm not seeing her in like human size. It's IMAX theater size. It's like 70-foot screen. And it like fills my world and it goes top to bottom of everything I can see. And I can feel it go around me too. So when Michael asked me, what do you want to do? I said, put me back in, coach.
Right.
I'm ready to play, like the song. And I said, I'm going back for my children. So I get one more group hug, and that hug, the second time, I could feel not only the unconditional love and the wisdom and the support that I just hadn't felt connected to before, but I could feel downloads of energy coming to me. And that was a really big deal. And it was fascinating, Joe, who I recognized in that group, because the minute I got up there, everyone looks exactly the same. Like I said, like these big white beach balls with just all this sparky energy. But I knew exactly who they were. And I recognized my mom's parents, my maternal grandparents. I knew them well. We had lived with them and spent significant time with them. So that didn't surprise me to be recognizing them. But I also recognized my dad's parents, my paternal grandparents. I never met them. Now, in this lifetime, because they died before I was born.
Wow.
But I knew exactly who they were. And I also recognized one of my best friends in this lifetime, and she is very much incarnated and on the planet. So the grandparents were all deceased, but yet here one of my best friends is there, and I recognized, oh my gosh, that's her higher self. So that was starting to fill in for me. We really do have higher self energy at home all the time. So you're never going to miss each other on reunions. Don't worry about, well, gee, what if I pass on and, Grandma Ethel, my best friend in the world, is already, incarnated again. That's okay. You're not going to miss each other. So I asked Michael to put me back into life, put me back into the body. And he just spins me around. I get that hug and I start going down the escalator, and I'm looking over my shoulder, and everyone's like in cheerleader mode, like, you can do it. We believe in you. Get back in there.
Wow. That,
And I just go down the escalator, and it just goes all the way into the hospital room and just comes out right at the hospital bed. And I just float gently back into the body and then go, oh God. And I do remember thinking two things. I remember thinking, why is this body so small? I was super annoyed.
I've heard this before.
5'2". I'm like, I know I should be bigger than this. So that was interesting. And also then the pain and the discomfort starts coming back, but I'm like, it's okay, just gotta hold on. Gonna have a successful surgery tomorrow. Got more energy. I've got everybody rooting for me. I've got this connection open now. The baby's gonna be fine, and the rest of it, I'm gonna figure it out. So that's exactly what happened, but it took quite a few years to unfold. So I did have the surgery the next morning, and they did it with some sort of ultrasound guidance. And what they told me was they discovered it was actually the fundus, which is the aorta at the top of the uterus, had ruptured. So my uterus had ruptured with an aorta, and that's why I'm pumping out so much blood. So I was correct when I initially went down. I thought, gosh, I think an organ burst. I don't know what else this is, because just to have that sudden amount of searing pain, and it made me think of that dream again, the ship going down.
Right.
And my doctor estimated I lost about 3/4 of my blood supply
Wow.
in that 3-4 day period that I was in the hospital before we did the surgery. So clearly, the surgery was the right decision, and those transfusions kept me alive. So I was very fortunate that I got the amazing medical care that I did get. But I don't think I would have survived that surgery without that trip home and without that energy download and uplift, and to consciously be aware of that. Because clearly I needed to feel that unconditional love and that support, and I needed to have that experience.
That's incredible. It's an incredible story. I think one of the most incredible parts of it is your memory of so much of it. I've spoke to a number of people who've had NDEs, and some of them are little quick moments. They experience these quick trips and they're in and out, and that's it. And then there's others that have um more information that comes back. One of the things that you said that really fascinated me was recognizing your friend, because I, in my own spiritual journey, have come to this, and I don't know how I know these things. I don't understand what this knowing is.
You know what you know, what you know.
Yeah, and I just know that we are but a mirror of something bigger, meaning I think over the years what's happened is I've run into people and I go, there you are.
Yes.
There you are. Where have you been? Like there was
Yes.
this
Like we
moment.
have to catch up. And you just met them
Yes.
5 seconds
And you
ago.
just met them. It's not everyone, but there's ones. I even had a situation one time in just a local Walmart, and I'll never forget it. And I was just checking out through the checkout, and I just had this urge to look back. And I look back, and there's a woman that's maybe 5 years younger than me or so, and she's looking straight at me. And I'm looking straight at her, and we both smiled, but it wasn't the same way you hit on someone or flirt. It was like, oh, there,
Soul recognition.
it was an immediate recognition of, I know who you are and you know who I am,
There you are.
but not this, but something in it. And then immediately I was drawn to pay for my items, and I can't get this off my mind, and I'm packing, and I look around and she's gone. And that sat with me for days. I remember that was one experience. I mean, I have people who are in my life now, including my current girlfriend, where I knew the moment I met her, I thought, okay,
You.
this is when this is happening now. And it makes you, always makes me feel like we've got to have that higher self. There's got to be something else that's guiding us. And it's so interesting. You said, as soon as you said that, it gave me goosebumps, because it makes me, it just made me realize that, yeah, there are people there that they don't all have to have been past.
Mhm.
Right. So I guess that was just something that really fascinated me. I have a few questions. So, okay. So this experience, is this the only experience you've had from a near-death experience perspective?
Those two near-death experiences in that 1 week are the only near-death experiences I've had. I've had many spiritually transformative experiences, but for near-death experiences, those were the two. And it was 26 years ago now, because that younger daughter is 25, so it's 26 years ago.
There you go. Yeah.
It just stays so clear. It's just like more real than real.
So the first one was when you were in the bathroom or you're in your home,
Right,
and you're on the floor and
right.
you're seeing these spiritual beings around you.
Mhm.
All right. Now, were those spiritual beings, were they the same spiritual beings you then saw later on?
They were. There were 4 or 5 angels, including Archangel Michael as the spokesperson. And then they were there when I went up the escalator and went home the night before surgery, and had that second near death experience. They were in the background, and again he's leading the discussion.
So it seems as if they had shown to show their support in a way, to say, we're
Very
here
much so.
and this is what you need to be doing if you want to survive this. Here's a little push.
Exactly. I felt so fortunate. I knew very little about near-death experiences at the time, because I just wasn't spiritually awake. I wasn't on that path, wasn't reading any of these books. And also it was 1997. So it wasn't as much a part of the pop culture as it is now, where there's such amazing, podcasts and documentaries and YouTubes and, so many books. just going on, and so many more discussions of it. And the irony of it, Joe, here I lived in Seattle, which had Seattle IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies support group, this amazing support group. It's the oldest support group for near-death experiencers in the world. And I lived right there and I never knew about it. So it took me 20 years. I didn't speak about this experience for that long because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to unpack it. I didn't know how to language it. I just really didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So what happened as kind of chapter 2 of this is, so I get home from the hospital. I'm in the hospital recovering for a couple more days. I go home to 6 weeks of bed rest, and then I go back to work, and I go back into a job I love. I've been there for about 3 years. I'm back for maybe about 6 weeks. And I worked in this very busy ambulatory surgery center. And, coworkers would just pass me in the hall, and I'd been out for a significant amount of time, and would say, "Oh, we're so glad you're back, Wendy. We're so glad you're okay. What happened?" And I'm like, "What do you say?" I don't have words for any of this, especially as you're, passing each other in the hall.
Right.
And so
Well,
I'm
and
back.
and working in medical, you're working with a lot of people who are science-minded individuals.
Yes,
There's all kinds of reasons why this would have been something that probably you needed to take your time with. Uh,
yes.
right. I
I,
would.
I chose not to share it with my physician. I didn't share it with any of the medical personnel because the experiences happened when no one was in the room with me. So, and I didn't want, because sometimes you get an unintended psych stay, and I was not interested in a psychiatric evaluation. I knew what I knew. And I also knew my mental health is rock solid, but I just did not want to go through a bunch of negativity around it with people who wouldn't know what to do with it. And like I said, I didn't find the support group that would have been the perfect place to go. I worked through it on my own. I tried to speak to my husband about it, but I realized he was more traumatized by the entire experience than I was, because he didn't have the benefit of these interactions with going home and with the angels and with the support. He didn't have the positive impacts that I'd had. So I just zipped my lip, and just kept it internally. I didn't, like I said, really begin to process it for many, many years. I wasn't sure what to do with it. So I'm back at work for about 6 weeks. And remember, number 3 was the kicker. Yes, you're going to have a successful surgery, regain your health, and your baby's going to be born healthy. But life is going to become very difficult, likely for many years. So what happened was, it's a Friday afternoon, and I get called into my boss's office. I don't think a thing about it. We have a great relationship. I figured he wants to chat about what we're going to do on the weekend, or let me know something he wants done the next week. Instead, I walk into his office and I can read his energy as clear as day. He looks like flatter than the pancake, like I was. And human resources is also sitting there with the file folder. So I know what this is. It's the infamous Friday afternoon layoff.
Right.
So I get laid off. I have not regained my health. I'm pregnant. I'm now quite visibly pregnant, and I hold the health insurance for the family. So we now have no health insurance for me to deliver, or to have my prenatal care. So this is not wonderful news, clearly. And I'm also not in a great headspace or physical condition to get out there and start interviewing. So it was a really tough situation. So they're doing everything they can to be as humane as possible. And I get a severance package and, great references. And, Wendy, go ahead and file for unemployment and get that going, and let us know anything else we can do for you. So that's what happens. 1 week later to the day, and this is November of 1997. So we'll see who the economists or historians in the group are. And my husband comes home from work
I'll
super
have to ask my girlfriend. That was when she was born. I don't know if she would. I don't know if she would know though, because that was
She
your
probably her parents would know.
parents would know.
I'm a generation older than you guys.
Right.
So I've got in fact, my oldest just turned 28 today and my youngest is 25.
Oh, nice.
So what happened is my husband comes home from work a week later to the day and he's hours late and he's not called. I'm really worried at this point. I'm thinking, has he had a fender bender or something? What's going on here? He comes in at about 8 o'clock at night and I'm waiting in the living room at this point because he's not answering my phone calls. And he walks in looking like double the weight of the world is on him versus my poor boss who had to lay me off, and says, Wendy, sit down. We need to talk. That's not, no one ever wants to hear this. And I was like, what's wrong? You okay? What's going on? And he let me know that his software company had just gone to payless paydays and he would be working extremely long hours because he was one of 5 owners of a successful 100-person software company, and they'd had to do these massive layoffs very quickly, and that he was just going to be having to do programming and fulfill contracts and also figuring out how to take care of the employees, what to do about the lease, the furniture, just a million things, and try and figure out how to get the company sold. I'm just looking at him. I've not heard a word after payless payday. I'm like, you like Charlie Brown when they heard the adults is just like, rah, 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 rah.
That's right.
I can't hear anything after payless payday. I'm like, what did you say? I don't understand. What is a payless payday? I don't understand.
Self-explanatory.
It wasn't to me.
No, I know. It's just I'm hearing it and I'm going, oh, I know what that, I think I know what that means.
So he explains again, Wendy, I'll be working extremely long hours. I will not be bringing home a paycheck. I'm
Wow.
like, oh, oh, okay. And so I'm trying to be empathetic because it's one thing to be laid off. It's another thing to lose your company
Right.
that you have put your, everything into and lose your baby in this way. So I'm trying to be kind of, okay, I understand. We're going to figure it out. Just take the weekend, just breathe. Monday, will you please file for unemployment? And at least we'll get that going. And then surprise number 2, because I had never been self-employed at that time. He's like, oh, Wendy, I don't qualify for unemployment. I'm self-employed. Like, what? So we're literally down to my unemployment. We've just purchased a new home about 6 months before that. We have just purchased a minivan for, second baby's coming. We have the full-time nanny on contract. So this moves into dire straits very quickly. We fortunately were saved by Bank of Mom, and my mother kindly loaned us the shortfall every month so that we did not lose our house and did not lose our van, because we would have lost both. Very forever grateful to her for that. And so this was all in November of 1997, which went into a deep, deep recession at that point. But, we didn't know that. We worked in different industries. He's in software, I'm in healthcare, but it just was a very deep recession at that point. So fast forward, I am due in March, and my baby is born healthy on a Friday, March 13th. 13 babies born in the hospital that day, which I thought was hysterical. I'm in that one hospital on Friday the 13th. And my husband gets back to work. He knew just a few days before they had been successful in selling their company, and the 5 of them were all going to now be employed by a new employer who'd purchased them, the remnants of their company, and he was going to start work on Monday. Talk about astrology shifting, major shift. Everything happens at once. So the baby's born on a Friday and he's back to work full time on Monday. And I then went back to work 3 months later.
Hey everybody, if you liked that episode, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I have a second part to this episode coming out with Wendy, and she will be digging deeper into 2 visits that she had from Archangel Michael, which is pretty amazing. It also was information that she received about some big changes coming in her life and how that affected her, and some future connections that she had with others. That's a big topic that we talk about. And then we dig deeper into her NDE. We start asking questions a little bit deeper as to the NDE and how it affected her and what we think is going on. Also, we'll be talking a little bit about the book that Wendy has written. And also, if you're looking for information on Wendy, you can find her at www.wendyrosewilliams.com. And you can also check her out at Waking Up Spiritually. It's a podcast that she hosts. And it's also at wakingupspiritually.com, which is where you can listen to those podcasts. So I look forward to having Wendy back, and you'll be able to see the second part of this coming out very soon. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Please like and share and subscribe, as I usually say, and share it with a friend. Share it with somebody who might need some inspiration to move forward. Till next time, I will see you on the next episode of The Soul Inspired. So